Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Welcome to the program. This is What's Your Story? My name is Catherine Mwangi, here today excited for this, first of all, melodic expression from His Excellency, Italy's ambassador to Kenya, Roberto Natali. We will be having a conversation about his life story and, of course, the friendship between Italy and Kenya. And so, Your Excellency, first of all, thank you so much for inviting us to your home.
Thank you.
It is beautiful. I'm looking forward to having a conversation with you. So would this be a good time to start?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Lead the way, sir. Thank you so much for, first of all, welcoming us to your cozy home. This is so beautiful. And for also your willingness to share your story. We are so glad to be here. So, you celebrated recently the Independence Day of Italy. Maybe tell us, first of all, what was that experience like just yesterday?
Yeah, so good evening to everybody, first of all, and let me to punctualize that it is not the Independence Day.
Okay.
National days are connected to Independence Days, or maybe the birthday of king, queens, emperors,
Okay.
or maybe a constitutional change.
Okay.
And this is the case of Italy, in the sense that after World War II, the Italian people decided to change the monarchy into a republic.
Okay.
But the independence of Italy was in 1860, so many years before that. And this change, this constitutional change, was in 1946. So from that point, we have a republic. And so this is the way we call the Day of the Republic, actually, in Italy. So this is our national day is connected to the new form, the new pattern of constitutional system in Italy. And so we are celebrating that day, this June 2nd, 1946 was the day. And so 2nd of June, we celebrated the National Day.
Yes, it was a beautiful day. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So as Italy's ambassador here in Kenya, first of all, we're going to track back your story to your beginnings. Why was diplomacy attractive for you?
That's a very good question, because many times along my life I wondered how I arrived to that.
Okay.
Many colleagues of mine are somehow connected because they spend their life abroad, because maybe the parents of some relatives was already in diplomacy. That's not my case. I come from a family. My father was an officer of the army, and so nothing to do with diplomacy. But I have some flashback. I remember that when I was maybe 7, 8 years old, my parents sent me in summertime 1 month to my aunt, sister of my father, who was a teacher. She was a teacher. And she put me studying every day, every morning before having my day of holiday. I had to write, I had to study.
Okay.
And I remember she was teaching me a lot about other cultures and other countries. And so I remember that I was curious about that, and I wanted to know that. But after that, my life was normal. I studied in a classical lyceum. And so I studied Latin, Old Greek, and all the subjects that are in that kind of school. But just before my university, I already had clear I wanted to be a diplomat.
Oh.
So I studied international political sciences, but with the international address orientation.
Yeah.
Just to try to join the diplomatic career, which is not easy in Italy, but I was successful, so I'm happy for that. And I'm here after many years. I'm in Kenya, and I'm so happy to be here.
Yes. So you knew you want to go into diplomacy as a young man in his 20s, and you knew that this is your career path. So what did you foresee the outcome of that decision being?
Well, let's say that the motivation of this, it's I would say an intellectual curiosity to know other peoples, to know other cultures, and to know other countries. And I think, as I also told in my speech the 2nd June at the celebration, I think that knowledge is the key to eliminate prejudice, to eliminate fear, and sometimes even violence. So I am sure that if we really know the so-called others, and when we know them, we realize that we are all the same.
Yes.
And we have the same feelings, the same problems, same expectations in life. We just want to live having our families, and we don't know why we're here. Of course, that's the main point. I would say, I would underline, in the sense that philosophies, religions have tried to give many explanations of the mystery of life. I am so happy to know countries, people, cultures, not like a tourist. No. Because of course you can make a trip and you spend a week somewhere. It's different. Living some years in a place, if you have this curiosity, of course, is something enriching and which makes you grow from the cultural and spiritual point of view.
Yeah, and I like what you said, because when all is said and done, and with or without travel, we are really all, we are all the same person. We are similar in so many ways, and just latching on to that, you being in diplomacy. So what were the initial stages like? So you've passed the exams. It was difficult to get into, you know, into that industry, or rather into that office, the foreign affairs. Back in Italy. So what were the beginnings like? Because people looking at you as an ambassador now should be able to know and understand that your first assignment was not an ambassador.
No.
Yeah.
It was not. No.
Yeah. So what were those beginnings? What kind of experiences did you have starting out?
In our career, first of all, in Italy, we all are career diplomats. Because you know that in many countries there are career diplomats, but also political appointed diplomats or ambassadors. We all enter with a difficult test, and we all, to arrive as ambassador, we spend a lot of years in different kind of responsibilities. And so I started in Ecuador, Quito, and I was number 2 in the embassy. So even a young diplomat, of course, has the responsibility of managing an embassy, because when the ambassador is not there, you are in charge. So this is something forming, which helped to understand how to manage an office abroad. And we cover all the aspects of like culture, political ones, commercial, culture, and consular aspects. And so this is something which gives you the skills one day when you will be ambassador, to know how to manage and how to advise your collaborators. And if you live abroad and you want to know, you discover not only what appears, but you can analyze and know the deep forces of the society which makes history after that. The decision, what happened in the history of a people. This is so charming for me. And in Ecuador, for instance, they have the so-called cosmogonie, which is their philosophy of the respect of nature. That's charming. That's very interesting to study, for instance. After Ecuador, I went to Finland. So quite a change, because from a climate point of view, from a cultural point of view, different religions. I mean, they are Christian, but very Catholic in Ecuador, Protestant in Finland, and so you start knowing differences to understand many things that, I mean, studying on the books and living in these countries, this place, these cultures, help you to have an idea of the world. And this is the most beautiful part of my job.
So when you're leaving your country, the country that you're serving, so you're leaving Italy to go and serve and represent the interests of Italy in different nations. What are the things you're told not to do?
Of course, you have not to say things that can offend another country, another people, and there is no reason to. But what we can do, we should do, is to promote bilateral relations in terms of, again, reciprocal knowledge, reciprocal trust, reciprocal support. And for instance, Italy and Kenya, we work together. We have a lot of things in common. democratic countries, very engaged in multilateral aspects, in favor of dialogue, peace, and friendship. So this is something that helps the work of a diplomat. In Kenya, for instance, we had last March a very important historical visit of our President of the Republic. What was important is that he decided to come to Kenya. It was a visit highest level, because the state visit is high level, and there was quite a symphony with President Ruto, and it has been a good moment. And for a diplomat, of course, it's like a boost of relations. So we signed many agreements, and we are working after that. We are going on easily.
Yeah, and we'll come to that. We'll come extensively to our relationship between Kenya and Italy at some point in the conversation. I just want us to draw this picture of who Roberto is, you know, the man, the diplomat. So that's really important, because people watching you, people who see you or read about you, see this ambassador. And yes, you have earned your stripes, so to speak. But beyond that veil, beyond that title, there's a family man. There's a man who loves to do, you know, things outside of the office. And so that's the picture we're drawing now. So when I hear you speak about Ecuador or Helsinki and the memories that you got from there, so maybe we start with Ecuador. What are your most cherished memories from Ecuador?
What I'm saying, a country with a huge culture, a wonderful territory, because it's, we can imagine 4 main regions: the Amazonic forest, then they call it the Sierra, the mountains, with the 6 wonderful, very high peaks, like Chimborazo, like Cotopaxi. So it's really a landscape you see, which is really charming. And then there is all the coast with its equatorial climate, and then Galapagos Islands. So from that point of view, wonderful country, and wonderful people.
Oh, okay. And your most cherished memories in Finland?
When I think about Finland, I remember a blue sky and a lot of snow. And by chance, these are the colors of the flag of Finland. Yeah, and this means that, of course, the climate is quite hard. But I always say that countries that have a difficult climate are very well equipped to face that climate. Yes. And so I really, my wife says that it was very cold. Yes, it was very cold, but I don't remember I suffered cold. No, absolutely not. From the political point of view, was also very interesting, because it was when they decided to join the European Union. And so, as country of the European Union, Italy, which is a founder of the European Union, we tried to explain what joining the Union was meaning, because of course people in the countryside, they say, oh, what's the problem there? Maybe I sell milk, if I get 1 cent less, so I don't want to join. But of course this decision should be taken at a higher level, because there is the general interest of the state. But anyhow, it was very, very interesting.
And I like that you brought up your wife, because then we get into the family aspect of who you are. So first, when did you get married? Was it before you joined the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, or during your tenure?
No, after. So I met my wife when I was in Ecuador. She was working with the United Nations as a JPO, you know, Junior Professional Officers. They had the contracts for 2 years. And so then she had to leave, because of course after 2 years the contract was finished, and I was transferred to Finland. In that time she was back to Rome, and she was covering responsibility in a voluntariat organization. And so she was traveling to Mozambique, and then to Russia, and then so. And at that time, we didn't have cell phones, we didn't have a WhatsApp, nothing of that, of course. And so it was so difficult to be in touch. And so I told her, look, either we get married or we are friends, because it was a difficult situation.
Yeah.
And so she decided to leave the job, and we got married. And so she came in Finland, to
Yes.
Finland, and just the last year I was there.
Oh, nice.
And then after 1 year, we had our first son, who was born in Helsinki. And we went back to Rome, and then all the other
Yes.
steps after the Roman period. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll get to relationships, but I like that you've established that. So when you served your country in Finland, you went back to Rome,
yes.
and you served your nation now while in Rome. So what were your roles there?
In Rome, I was the head of the press office at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And so it was also, that period was very interesting. I discovered to what extent internal politics can influence foreign policies.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh.
Because I remember when I wrote a press communiqué, for instance, you have to balance every word, because when you say something, of course, the political attention is there.
Yes.
But in the meantime, I am a diplomat, so
Yes.
I have to protect also the relation with other countries.
Yes.
So it was a good school. It was a good school.
And
Yeah.
it prepared you for your stint in America.
Correct.
So your role in America was also tied to press.
Yes, I was the head of the press office at the embassy in Washington and spokesman of the embassy. And that also was a quite difficult period, because I was sent there in 2001, and I arrived in August, and the September 11 was there. And so we had all these attacks to the United States and the reactions of the press and the reaction of people.
Yeah.
They got very united against this attack.
Yeah.
And I remember that they say it's a second Pearl Harbor. That was the idea. Because actually the United States have never been attacked unless Pearl Harbor on their territories.
Yes.
So it was something very shocking for them.
Yes.
For the world, of course.
And as a diplomat, when there's a crisis of that magnitude, what are you required to do?
We organized immediately sort of crisis unit to protect the Italians. I remember that many Italians were there, and the airports were closed, and they wanted to come back. It was impossible. And some of them did not understand. They say, but I have, I don't know, the marriage of my cousin.
Yeah.
This is something very huge. So I remember there was a delegation from the parliament, from our parliament. We had to send them by bus to Canada.
Wow.
And then from Canada they had a plane to go back to Italy. But it was difficult to explain that it was something historical, really a huge event.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you're helping to evacuate your people.
Yes.
And what about yourselves who work in the embassy?
Well, we, of course, we had our kids in the school.
Yeah.
The orders by the American authorities were, do not go to pick your children up, because we will take care of them. So the only way was from Washington to go out of town, not inside.
Go back in, yeah.
Yeah. And of course, my wife, who is an Italian mom, you can imagine, say, no, I want to go. Look, yeah. It was a difficult moment.
Yeah.
But we understood how difficult it was for the Americans, of course.
But at least finally everyone was safe, your children.
Yes. But for instance, my kid, who was 5, more or less, the one who was born in Finland, he understood that something was happening. Some embassies closing, some people leaving. There was a movement in Washington. He wanted to know. And as to protect him, we said, no, it's nothing, it's normal. But he understood, no, it's not normal. So his curiosity was growing more and more about that. And so then he studied a lot of international politics, and maybe this has been a moment which marked his personality.
Yes. What was Morocco like?
Well, Morocco is a country that I love. It's a country with a very old culture, wonderful territory, many beautiful towns, It's a people very sweet, very hospitality is very important for them.
Yeah.
So I spent 4 years that I remember with pleasure. It will be the same for Kenya, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But Morocco, of course, has been a marking point
Yes.
in my life. Also because, as I told at the beginning, if you go in a country which is very similar to your country, you live in a comfortable way because you know everything, but you don't discover anything. So that's the reason why, for instance, I've been in Barcelona, which is, of course, as Consul General, of course, it's a wonderful town, Spanish people, Catalan people, very, very hospitable. So I've been very, very well in the country, but there was not something new for me.
Okay.
Because once you speak the language of the place, it's like to be in Milan, to be like in Europe. So it's not, from the emotional point of view,
Yeah.
Nothing is touching you.
Oh.
That was different in Morocco.
In Morocco.
And it's different here.
Yes.
And in Morocco, so for instance, I started studying Arabic. Yes, because I wanted to take advantage of that.
Okay.
So I studied Arabic many years. I studied a lot of Islam to understand better, because I say always that we live in the prejudice.
Yes.
We live in a lack of knowledge, and that's the point. And even myself, I have studied a lot, of course, but when I was sent to an Islamic country, I had something which was coming from the culture of Europe.
Yeah.
All what happened, all these crazy people,
Yeah.
they say they are Islamic, but of course they are just
Wrong
fanatics.
narratives,
Right,
yeah.
And so I wanted to study that. I understood a lot of things. And once again, I understood that we are all on the same boat.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Love that. Okay, we'll continue with your story in a little bit. For now, we take a short commercial break. Don't go too far. When we come back, we find out how the friendship between Italy and Kenya is faring on at this point in time, right after the break.
If you have an Italian food diploma, something like that, you can work wherever in the world.
Yeah.
So that's important.
Yeah.
We are working, for instance, at preparing staff who will be embarked in cruise ships, for instance.
Oh.
Why? Because Kenyan young people speak perfect English, and so they can work easily traveling the world.
Oh, wow.
If they know something, not only for cooking, but also for receptionists in a hotel,
Yes.
all that the hotel skills, to say, that could be employed very easily.
Welcome back. You're watching KTN Home. This is What's Your Story. I'm Catherine Mwangi. We are continuing our conversation with His Excellency Roberto Natali. He is the ambassador of Italy here in Kenya. So during your speech, you said that it's important to look at Africa with Africa eyes. You said that in your speech. What does it even mean to look at Africa through Africa eyes?
My understanding is that European eyes can still have some prejudice coming from history, coming from the past. We want to see Africa as it is now. And when we say, so it's a long time, we say Africa is the continent of the future. I would say Africa is the continent of the present and of the future, of course. So this is very important. We have to find a new paradigm, and once again, we have to know Africa. And to know Africa, if we look at Africa with the European eyes, we will have a picture. But if you try to look at Africa with African eyes, after having known Africa, the picture will be different. And so this is so important. And this is what a diplomat must do. Otherwise, we could stay everybody in its capital and working by internet. No, we want to stay in a country because we want to live and to know people. Yes, which is important.
I really like that. And when I heard that yesterday, I almost wanted to clap. Then I remembered, oh, okay, we are clapping after the speech. But that is really, really important because for a very long time, and yes, you're right, Africa is a continent of what, 53 nations, I think we are. And we are not, we are so diverse. Every country is so different and unique. And so when your Minister of Foreign Affairs is telling the ambassadors who serve Italy in Africa that you have to look at this continent with African eyes, it just makes a lot of sense because we, as a people, we are unique, our needs are unique, and also what we have to offer the world is very unique, as you know. So let's touch that first with, Italy is no stranger to Kenya, again, little Italy. At the coast, Watamu, Kilifi, Diani. Yeah. There's a whole Italian community, strong, and contribution to the tourist economy also is very strong. And so we are almost like one people because Italians occupy a very large territory here in Kenya. When the president of Italy visited this country in March, and like he said earlier on in the show, it was a very unique visit because he came specifically to Kenya. What was the outcome of that visit? First of all, what was the inspiration behind the visit?
Usually, what we do, we sign agreements between the two countries in different fields. Yeah. Like maybe health, maybe education, maybe cooperation to development, maybe exchange of information. So all these agreements are just signed documents, but after that we build on them. Because within these juridical frames, we can do a lot of things. Yeah. And that's up to the ambassador after the visit, because of course the head of state comes and actually, for the Italian system, it's not him who signs the agreements, but it's always a member of the government. Okay. Because in our system, the head of government and the head of state do not coincide. Okay. So when the president travels abroad, it's always accompanied by the member of the government. All right. And in this case, it was the Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs who was the one who signed the agreement with the different ministers of the Kenyan governments according to the subject, of course. Yes. And so we signed 6 agreements, and which is a lot. And now, in these days, I'm just studying each agreement one by one to see what we can do together to improve our relations. Okay. But this is a way of building mutual trust, mutual support. Yeah. And we know that together we can do something for our peoples. We want that things will go better and better. Yeah. Because we live in difficult times, of course. And so what can we do as diplomats? We have to build these links, this bridge, to have a win-win situation and live better together. Yeah.
So it's mutually beneficial then?
Of course.
So 6 agreements that now it is going to be your responsibility to ensure each is effected.
My responsibility and Kenya's responsibility. We want to work together to see what can we do for you, what can you do for us. We have a lot to learn from Kenya. Kenya has a lot to learn from Italy. So this is our philosophy. So we think the time where some countries say that we arrive and we say what you have to do. That's not the way of dealing with diplomatic relations, in my opinion.
Yeah. So would you share what these 6 agreements were on, which sectors maybe?
In the sector of health, in the sector of cooperation to development, there is a pluriannual plan which has been decided together for cooperation to development. That's, as I told also in my speech, that's women empowerment, private sector empowerment, health, water, which is so important. We have seen in this country, now it's raining, okay, but we have seen a few months ago the situation of drought was really serious. Yeah. So we have to do something because water means life. And I've had the opportunity of traveling in some conservancy park, and in that period of drought, I've seen really something sad. Animals are really skinny, so really they need water and food.
Yeah, Yeah.
So there's something. But of course, apart from that, we want to work also in training of startups. So when President Mattarella came to Nairobi, we went to visit a project which is called the E for Impact, which is an incubator of a startup. And we have seen that a lot of young Kenyans passed through this place of training, and they started their own company.
Yes.
With that training, and we're happy for that, because we have seen that they really realized the dream. Just they needed a little bit start like a spike to start.
Yes.
But this is something I'm proud of it.
Okay, that's beautiful. So in the same way that Kenya has been host to a lot of Italians, and especially in the coast region, and of course, you know, in different cities places in Kenya, it's the same way also there's a large community of Kenyans in Italy.
Yes.
You know, schooling and working.
Yep.
And I'm yet to hear of any complaint by any Kenyan, you know, going through anything in Italy. If anything, they say it feels like home, you know, the similarities between Kenya and Italy. What, for Kenyans seeking to, for example, pursue further education in your country, Italy, because that's what's most important. Most young people want to have, to extend their capabilities by schooling, for example, in your country, Italy. What would your advice be to them? Like, why should they choose Italy?
Okay. Let's say that, of course, we are conscious that the language is not the same, and so maybe many young Kenyans try to go to UK, for instance. That's normal, because everything is easier because of the language.
Yes.
But Italy has some specific points according to the subject young Kenyan want to study. If you want to study architecture, for instance, this is easy. If you want to study medicine, of course, this is also a possibility. But also not only for the university level to be a professional at that level, but we have a lot of people who just want to work maybe in a lower level, not with a university graduation, but very important.
Yeah.
This is not a matter of say we are better than you or no. In the destiny of a history, in this moment, we can give something more, and you can give something more in another field.
Yes, yes.
So we have to find this point of contact. There are so many between Italy and Kenya, and we have to grow together in that.
I like that. So speaking of synergies, in your short time here, it's less than a year, right?
Less than a year.
Yes. What have you found to be the similarities between Kenya and Italy?
Italians and Kenyans are warm people, people of heart. And I have to say, we were talking before of Kenyans in Italy, Italians in Kenya. There are a lot of mixed couples. So that means that there is a feeling, there is a way of understanding each other, which is so important. I always say that sometimes even of the same small village, men and women, it's not very easy to understand each other, but you can imagine that.
Yes.
There is I know a lot of people, a lot of Kenyan men and Italian women, or the country.
Vice versa.
Yeah, vice versa.
So interracial relationships, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, that's beautiful. And the food?
The food, well, when we talk about food, of course, Italy is a little bit ambitious, saying that there is something which is in Italy, which is the varieties. It's the richness of different way of preparing food.
Yeah.
And of course, I think that with Kenya, of course, we can find some kind of fusion. We have some Italian chefs who are here teaching, for instance, how to prepare certain kind of food or dishes. And that's important because, for instance, we have, as you told, a lot of Italian resource on the coast. And Italians come for holiday, for tourism, and they know that they will find well-prepared Italian food by Kenyans. So it's important to train and to study that. And
Yes.
that's a kind of job. And in addition, if you have an Italian food diploma, something like that, you can work wherever in the world.
Yes.
So that's important.
Yes.
We are working, for instance, at preparing staff who will be embarked in cruise ships, for instance.
Oh.
Why? Because Kenyan young people speak perfect English, and so they can work easily and traveling in the world.
Oh, wow.
If they know something, not only for cooking, but also for receptionists in a hotel,
Yes.
all that the hotel skills,
Yeah.
let's say, that could be employed very easily because I would say that on board of this kind of ships, they are well paid and they have no difficulty because of the knowledge of the language.
When you're moving from country to country, serving, your nation, Italy, and you're moving with a family, a young family, and you have to pack, settle down, adapt, schools, etc. What is that experience like?
Well, let's say that, as I told, my father was an officer, so we traveled a lot.
Yeah.
Within Italy, but we changed a lot of towns in Italy. So this packing and unpacking is something which is part of my life.
Yes.
But of course, when you go in another country, you have to get information. What will I find? What is there? And of course, for instance, we always bring some Italian food stuff. Then we discover that we found them here. but of course, it's much expensive here because the import taxes and the travel and all that.
Yeah.
So I say, as we go, the first time we bring them. But after that, we buy here. We cannot really import from Italy again because it's
already here.
More complicated.
Yeah. You as the head of the home, ensuring that your family is settled, and at the same time you have your work as a high-ranking diplomat. So how do you just bring those two together and just make sure?
Because I also have my wife. Of course, yeah.
Okay.
No, but let's say that in everything you can find positive and negative aspects. So the positive aspect, and when you go in another place, there is enthusiasm, and you want to discover, and you want to see how to furnish your house with things, and you will find some solutions.
Yeah.
This is good there, this is not. And so it's a moment of pleasure, I would say.
Okay.
The problem is that sometimes, according to the age of the kids, they can suffer this movement. I remember, for instance, when we were in Washington, D.C., and the kids were, of course, very young, and in order to protect them, with my wife, we decided to move them to Italy for holidays. And so they left the house, their home, and they went to holiday because they knew they would come back as every year.
Yes.
But they didn't, because in that summer we moved to Barcelona. And so they remained with this idea of coming back to Washington, and they didn't. So this was a little bit disrupting for their tranquility.
Yes.
And so the following day, leaving from Barcelona, we decide the country. We say, okay, you take your little bear, you put it in a box, you will find it there.
Yeah.
So they lived that experience,
I see.
and so it was here.
Okay.
And the House of Washington, they were really sad because they didn't go back. It was their home. And then we went for holiday once in Washington, and the house had been taken by a colleague of mine. So he was so kind and say, come at home for dinner.
Yeah.
And so the kids saw that the house was still there. And they, after that, things were quite... but you know, there are psychological aspects which are not always easy.
Yeah, yeah. But somehow you've managed to, together with your wife, just sail your family through every move, through every settling. So that has been beautiful. Yeah. So Kenya, what do you love about Kenya?
Until now, everything. But I have a lot to discover. And I think that actually, as I told at the beginning, people. People. And then, of course, the country is so beautiful, you know. And I like also the climate of Nairobi. Wonderful. I don't like too much heat, so it's It's a very, very beautiful. And if you want to go to the seaside, it's not so far.
Yeah.
And then you have these wonderful mountains, of course. No, it's a country with a very interesting realities. But as I told once again, what I like it to know people, tradition.
Yeah.
Yes.
You are not only serving Kenya, but also Seychelles.
Yeah.
And you're also the permanent representative of UNEP and UN Habitat.
Yes.
What are those roles like? What goes into that?
I've been there 1 week recently, and I met the president and several ministers. And what I told them is that I am ambassador in Kenya first, but don't feel that you are aside for that.
Okay.
So I also am ambassador to Seychelles. And for instance, we are organizing in Italy some training courses for police, for instance, against drug trafficking. And so immediately coming back, I wrote to Rome, and then I wrote to the Minister of Interior in Seychelles saying, look, we have 9 places for foreign people. 2 I asked for Seychelles.
Wow.
And they sent 2 officers of police already. So it's something we have to do. So it's important to cover all the aspects of diplomacy.
Yes.
Of course, I would like we were a little bit more in the embassy, because covering Kenya is already so important, a lot of things to do. Then Seychelles, and then also the United Nations.
Your Excellency, so as we wind up, what advice would you share with people watching just about, life and the philosophy of life, something that has worked for you?
I would say what I tell to my sons, my daughter, which is again, try to know before judging, because there is no way to judge by appearances. Appearances are sometimes coming from shy people who try to show something that they are not. But if you really enter in confidence with people, you will discover that we all have a wonderful quality in our soul, and I can say that after having known a lot of people in the world of different religions, different cultures, different stories, but there is something which is the human being.
Yes.
Which is really, of course, is a common to everybody, and the human being is made of sensitivity, of love, and sometimes studying philosophy in particular, there were some Greek philosophers of the golden centuries of Greece, and they tried to understand what is the crucial, essential element of existence.
Right.
So someone said, like Thales, he said it's water. Some others say it's not, it's air. Some others say, I think that is emotion. And emotion is what you can get from a smile, from music, from an image, from nature. And so this is something which is common to everybody, because everybody is able to feel something good in the soul. Even what we call bad people or people who have made mistakes, but they are people. If you really are able to understand their soul, you will find that they are as we are.
What is your inspiration?
Again, knowledge of other people. Because when we say others, we can intend others in 2 different ways. The first way is the other is someone different, which is not me. It's what the old Greeks called the barbaros, which is foreign. They speak another language. They come from another culture, so they are different. We have to keep the distance. But the other way of understanding the other is the other as a part is the part which is missing to complete the unity. For instance, an example, if you think about a match of tennis, double, and at the beginning of the match, you just see one player enter. You say, and the other? What is the other? So the other is not someone who stay out. The other who is missing to make the team. So it's this is the way I think. When I think about others, I
Yeah.
think the others I have to know. The others I want to understand how they live, what they do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I always say to my Italian friends, I say, if you receive a family coming from, I don't know, for instance, Pakistan, let's
Yeah.
say, just,
Yeah.
and they settle in the apartment just in front of you, what you have to do with this new reality? What I say, invite them. That night, invite them. You will know them, they will know you, and your relation will be wonderful.
Wow.
If you try to say no, now I put some plants to divide, but you will smell the kind of kitchen. You cannot avoid that.
No.
You cannot avoid that. And in the world, people moving here and there is the rule. So it is an illusion to think that people should stay in a place and may be suffering because of the economic conditions, and they don't have to. I think it's a right for every father, every mother, to bring their people in a situation where they can live better.
Well, thank you for just opening up your heart and your mind and just sharing who you are. I feel your strength and your passion for people. And even, you know, my producer Millicent was saying to me when we came here that you were even helping the crew just set up, you know.
Yeah, we do that.
And I said to her, what? You know, but that just speaks to your strong heart, your sensitive heart, your heart for people. And I'm so honored and privileged that you had this conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, it's my pleasure.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. And to you watching, especially those who may have, you know, a desire to go and study in Italy, you had the ambassador speak about some of the subjects that would be great for you to go study there. If you didn't hear them, the show goes up on YouTube right after this. You will find that and just listen. My takeaway from this conversation is really just people, and you've heard him say that over and over and over again. Seek to know people and just drop the prejudice. I love the example you gave about if your neighbor was from a different community, instead of just, you know, judging them, invite them over for dinner and get to know them. I love that. I really do. And again, that, if you didn't get anything else, just that, kill the prejudice and just open your heart and embrace people as much as you're able to. Thank you for making the time to tune in tonight. It's always a pleasure that you set aside some time to tune into What's Your Story. Another brilliant, inspiring story coming to us tonight from His Excellency Roberto Natali, Italy ambassador to Kenya. We say goodbye before I keep messing up. Ciao. No. Grazie. You say grazie? Grazie. And how do you say goodbye?
Arrivederci.
Okay, he said it.
Arrivederci. Bye. Thank you.